Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Well, it's nice to see all of you show up as you always do every Monday. Sally, how you doing? Eve, always a pleasure to see you. Trisha, yeah, baby. Bill Allen's in the house. How you doing? Tony, yes, sir, yes, sir. Lloyd's with us. Steve Shaw, yes. We're well represented here. Madcap Plastics is with us, and of course, Camp McINTOSH has joined us, and we have a really big announcement when it comes to Camp McINTOSH. Just a couple announcements before. CFN Fish Off, all your prizes. I know it took a little bit to get going, but I want a huge shout out thank you to POW Castings for making it all possible. We still have a few to go out. The provincial winners, we have our bronze, silver, gold winners. We have all our kids winners, and of course, all those who managed to take home a very generously donated Symmetry combo from Shimano. Those have all been issued as well. So stay tuned. If you haven't received it, you're going to. But again, thanks to all the sponsors, but of course, namely POW Casting. I tell you, we couldn't have sent it out. I don't know if you folks have seen, but shipping costs are like through the roof. So big shout out to POW Castings for that. And of course, I wanted to also mention Yvonne Brown, Ladies Night, is returning next Monday. So when we get back from Camp McINTOSH, stay tuned. Yvonne's going to be on. I know I'm supposed to remember who the guest is or what it is she's going to be talking about, but I do believe it's an announcement of an upcoming event. So stay tuned for that. Now, also, I can't say enough about Fish Whipped Apparel. If you are looking for CFN swag, please reach out to Barb French from Fish Whipped Apparel. That is the CFN starter pack. It includes a snapback hat, a buff, and of course a boat flag, and $70. That includes your shipping. So, boom! If you're interested in purchasing something from that has a little bit of CFN, je ne sais quoi, Fish Whipped Apparel is the place to go. Now, the most important news that I have to present to you, of course, has to do with Camp McINTOSH. Barry, Sally, you're going to be joining us. Of course, Steve Shaw, you're going to be up there with your family. Unfortunately, I have some bad news, which is going to turn into the good fortune for someone else. Christine Lohr, unfortunately, has to cancel, but is very willing to pay for the 2 spots that she would have taken up. She intended to spend the money anyway, so in true CFN nature, she has offered up those 2 spots. So, as it is right now, there are 4 spots available at Camp McINTOSH. 2 are for free and have already been have already been paid for, and 2 are paying spots. So if you look at it this way, if you're a party of 4 and you're not really sure, well, this is your opportunity to jump on. First come, first serve. Tracy is going to be the one that is going to do all the policing when it comes to this, because you have to reach out to Camp McINTOSH and, of course, our good friend Tracy, who is basically running everything for us, and her and Andre have put up the entire camp for our CFN and OFC Nation community. So if you know anybody from OFC up here, CFN, a party of 4 would be ideal. And I tell you, the benefit from it would be incredible for all 4, because it'd be basically 2 for 1. However, the 2 free spots are available first. Okay. I know a lot of people would suggest, why don't you do the paid spots? The 2 free spots are available first. So please get in touch with Camp McINTOSH. Thanks so much, Steve, for the link. Reach out to Tracy. Tell her Christine and Scotty sent you, and our OFC Nation community. You have 2 free spots available. There are 2 paid spots still available, so 4 spots total. But as I said, I can't thank Christine enough. My condolences to her grandmother. Unfortunately, has had a stroke, and she's going to be dealing with this. And I hate to sound excited, but of course, generosity like this gets me excited. And so, Christine, thanks so much for extending the olive branch to our community like you have. It means the world to see this kind of generosity, and I'm hoping that 4, ideally 4, but preferably 4, but ideally 2 can benefit from this. So as I said, I'll mention it again, 4 spots are available, 2 paying, 2 are for free. First come, first serve. If you are one person and want a free spot, you better call, because I don't know how long this is going to be available. Of course, as you know, it's upcoming. Like, it's right around the corner. It's literally, well, some of us are heading up there for Wednesday, but it's literally this weekend. It starts September 23rd. Sorry, I'm just doing a bunch of things here. Friday, September 23rd to Sunday, September 25th. There's the website. It's $380 for the 3 days and 2 nights. If you want an extra night, by all means, it's an extra $190 per person, but it includes your cabin, your meal, your boat, your motor, gas, and worms. You cannot beat it, because I tell you, you cannot get a hotel room for that kind of price. So, evening, Luke. Evening, Ron. Evening, Kevin. How you guys doing? Hope everybody is well in CFN land. Joe Moore's, yes, happy Monday, CFN. Amen to that. Also, I wanted to mention I have unfortunate news, and I hate ending like this because it's a bit of a downer, but I don't know if you remember, recently we had done an edit. Actually, it was Steve Shaw that did the edit, and it was Steve Derbyshire that had gone and done chemo. He had cancer. It had come back. He was in the midst of chemo. Everybody was giving him thumbs up and support. He is well known, very, very, very well known individual down in the Wheatley area. So I wrote this on the post that we did. Steve is best known for his love of the outdoors, long days dragging nets on Lake Erie. He was a commercial fisherman on the tugs, and now serves as Wheatley's harbor master. His fearless battle and rough bout of chemotherapy resulted in Steve's worst nightmare. The cancer is back. Now, this again was back in June. Thanks to Josh then for letting us know. I want to thank Jeremy Vaughn for letting us know, unfortunately, that our prayers and thoughts are with the family. His extended friends base, I tell you, the circle of friends is absolutely massive. He is a big name down in the Wheatley area, and he's going to be missed, because unfortunately, not only did the cancer come back, it took our beloved Steve away. So on that note, I want to end the opening with a salute to Steve. But I also want to let you know that a video upcoming after that is a good friend of ours I spent a day with out fishing, Big Jim McLaughlin, and I will share that directly after our tribute to Steve. But this is a salute to you, Steve. Our prayers are with you. Hope you rest in peace. Hope your family finds comfort and closure, and I hope your friends can somehow move forward. All the best, my friend.
Hey, you ready to go to school?
Why do I feel like I'm going to be wearing the dunce cap most of the day?
No, you're not. This is fun fishing. But Tammy still hasn't received your $300 email payment for the tournament today.
Guess what I got to do right now? Yeah, baby.
Oh, by the way, CFN's funding the prize too. It's $5,000.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
See the bend in the rod? I always talk about the crankbait rod, the horizontal lures. Otherwise, it's just got one hook in the lure. Don't come out. Yeah, when I can't get my hand across the back of them, they're getting big. Changed up again. Once again today, everything I'm doing is going this way. Going this way. No jigs on the bottom, stuff like that. I tried it right at the beginning in a couple of little spots. Not a sniff, nothing. I know it's a slower process and everything, but the one on the chatterbait, we got a real big one with me, and that's the baby doing all the damage right there. Jackal TN70, and see my little VMC snap. Gotta have that. No swivel on it, just a snap to give it some room to move. We'll get this baby back in the water.
Dude, the big man's watching. This isn't gonna cut it. You guys are killing me. He's like right there. We can't do any better than this. I'd rather not show you, Jim. Nice.
A decent one.
Yes, sir.
Another nice fish for the day.
Yes, sir. Well, Jim, with that fish, I have officially been schooled.
We had fun, buddy.
We sure did.
Another nice one.
Beautiful.
Ooh, that would have been a good score.
Yeah,
You know
baby.
what? I'm so glad we had this time. I'm done, buddy.
I feel you.
I'm done.
Thanks for your time, bud. This has been a lot of fun.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah,
And,
baby.
You know, we caught a whack of fish too.
You did. You
Oh,
sure as heck
Big
did.
ones too, it's what it is.
Yes, sir. Right on. Well, Jim.
Now, wasn't that bad? You didn't show some of the fish you got. You make me look like a bum guide.
You are a fantastic guide, and you were a lot of fun. And I want to, just before we move on from that, I want to mention to you all that are watching, Luke Northmore is putting together these segments, and there is some really good educational stuff that is associated with the trip that Jim and I took together. So please go over to Just Fishing and Big Jim McLaughlin's YouTube channel so that you can gather some of that information. Because there was a point in time, I swear, you look back and you were wondering if I was going to throw another bait in the water. But literally, Jim, I sat back in awe because there were some styles of fishing that I've never done. I'm not a big bass guy, and watching you do some of the things, and I'll tell you, one of the anecdotes that you said, you know, they're all living in high rises, which of course is the weed layer, but they're all on the first floor. I thought that was hilarious. Probably one of the funniest things I heard.
And then that's why I was letting the jig go to the bottom, but you notice that didn't happen that day.
Yeah.
They wanted to chase something, and it's really funny because the week before it was like that when I was out with Luke, and that's still to come. He'll get that done for YouTube. It was ridiculous in the number of big. No, we got some nice big fish with you.
Yeah.
You know, we got a few out there, but it's, you know, I just try to explain to people that they do the same thing all the time. You gotta know when to fish, and it's by trial and error. You saw me try other things. There's days when the fish want it like this. There's days when they want it on the bottom, being just popped off the bottom, moved along a foot, allowed to sit still, jig a little bit, move it along like you saw me do.
Yeah.
And I did not catch a fish on a jig with you. Now, I caught several with Luke, including I got a real nice fish that was about a 4.5 pounder probably. I got several fish with a jig and a Texas rig, and that the stuff I really love to use. And as I said to you when we fished, this is what I really won the money doing.
Yeah.
The vast majority of it was in the weeds like that when it comes to largemouth. But then it was crankbaits that won me the biggest prizes, and the $80,000 and $90,000 paydays. That was from crankbaits, and that's.
And there is a technique. I mean, I think anybody who has done this, and I know I talked to Steve on the way home from your place, who said he's definitely got to be invited next time we go out, and I guaranteed that he would. But there is a technique to dropping that Texas rig and knowing what to feel for. And as I said, that's why I put the rod down at one point and just watched, because you're not doing it at a whim. There is a method to the madness.
And I'm rusty as heck.
Well,
I mean, I haven't done this at a high level in years. I haven't fished, those days where you used to fish 125 days are gone. Mind you, I've got a little bit tuned up on a rattlebait recently and the chatterbait. I was catching them out the back last night too,
Is that right?
That's what I told you. When I was out with you, I fished a jerkbait for quite a while.
Yeah.
I made over the day 2 or 3 times. I used it for like 10 or 15 minutes where the fish are. So I'm working the jerkbait, getting nothing. And this is in the fall, jerkbaits are primo. They work really well as the water cools off. As long as you hesitate a lot, when you're working it, you got to let it sit and then move it again, let it sit. And I was doing that out here. And then last night I went down the back here, and the first cast I took, I jerked it. I was jerking it back. It's twitching and dancing, doing its thing all over the place. Nothing. And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe they're not biting down the back tonight or something. So then I cast it out and I reel it straight back. Then I turn the chair a little bit and I cast it the other way and I reel it straight back, just letting it swim just like a minnow. Boom, 2.5 pounder. Just about takes the rod out of my hands because it was doing this. And right now, these fish, I'm sure it's got something to do with water temperature or whatever. They are absolutely wanting to chase stuff and kill it.
I'm so glad you brought that up because the only doubleheader we had was at a time when you had hooked up to yet another fish, and I was reeling in my lipless crank literally as fast as I can.
Oh yeah.
So that I could get it in, so I could start taking some film. And lo and behold, I couldn't have reeled it in any faster, and boom, doesn't it get smacked? You had mentioned too about speed. It was almost as if you couldn't present it fast enough.
Oh no, you can't. We don't have reels that you can reel it fast enough. If they want to get it, they get it. I've had days where I've reeled spinner baits and rattle baits, guys. Like your arms getting sore, you got sweat dripping off your face in the middle of the summer with the speed. And usually on really cloudy days it happens. And when they hit it, the impact is just incredible. Especially, and they don't have to be big fish. Like I said to you last week, there was some out there. They're 2.5 pounds, and they had the TN70 there, the rattle bait, the jackal, in their mouth, just line coming out. And they're not very big fish. They're only like 2.5 pounds. Like, they're nice. I love them. I'll catch them all day. But they just, even with that speed, it's in their mouth. It's, you always hear me talk about when you use baits with treble hooks on them like this, that you want a rod with all the flex. And I kept explaining it to you the other day. I couldn't stress it enough because it was perfect. Some of those fish going underneath the boat like that, you just see that rod go into that big bow. And I only lost one, and it was holding it out of the water, and it shook off at the side, a little one, It's that kind of thing. So I've lost like 2 or 3 fish out of probably 50 or 60 in the last couple of times out there. It's because of the rod. Yeah. There's a little skill involved to keep the line taut in that, but it's the rod doing the job out there, and that's the whole difference, man. It's absolutely incredible.
100%. And yes, Steve, Jim gave a good washing to his flash boost, but unfortunately, the flash boost, it didn't produce like the lipless cranks, like that TN70. Holy smokes! Yeah. I asked you, did you specifically get that color? And you said no. I literally just pulled it out of the package, tied it on, and away it went.
First time I used it was last Sunday.
Unreal.
It's my new favorite color. But I got to try to get out one of the days this week. We were going to go tomorrow, but there's going to be like a 30-click wind from the northwest. So where we were fishing there, and where I dumped that weed bed a lot, and the wind will be blowing the full length of the lake right in that whole area. So It's just, I'll give it a day to settle down. But when I go out there, I might try something completely different. I might try a bait fish color like a silver, something like that. It's just, something. Just because you're catching a lot of fish, that's when you got to experiment.
Yeah.
And that way you can find something that's even better. Just because you're catching a fish every 10th or 15th cast all day long, you gotta, maybe you put something on and then all of a sudden you're catching, one every 5 casts. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen so much. It's just absolutely a legit thing. It really, really works.
100%. And of course, another thing that can't be overlooked or emphasized enough is boat safety and boater ethics. We don't want to point out everything that went wrong while we were out there, but folks, when there's no wake signs and there's speed restrictions, and even if it isn't posted, we as boaters and even jet skiers need to know what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. And I was absolutely amazed at how many people were passing us on plane on Saturday.
Well, the guys in the jet skis right at the end,
Yeah.
and then they slow down a little bit because they're caught coming around a bend in a little narrow speed zone, which drains the whole Rideau Lake system. They're coming around the corner and it's, oh, hi guys,
Yeah.
Because they're caught dead, and those two older ladies.
Yes.
In a
And
little
my
bitty
fear
boat. Yeah.
it was a small little narrow boat, and my fear was if one of them fell in, and I don't mean this as a crack or trying to be funny, but how would the other one pull the other one back in the boat? They
Probably just keep going, wouldn't realize.
Yeah, maybe, yes.
I don't know.
One thing you brought up on the water, which I think should be a topic at some point, based on how far we reach in terms of our geography, there are specific baits that work in specific bodies of water, perhaps almost too well in certain bodies of water. But the minute you take that bait out of that body of water and that comfort zone and try and use it somewhere else, it doesn't work as well. Can you name one, Jim, off the top of your head that works really well here, but not so much anywhere else?
Well, I give it to you the other way around. There's a lake in, I think it's Lake. No. Oh. I'm not sure. It's where the Bassmaster team thing is going, like where Chong is qualifying hopefully this week.
Okay.
Already qualified. Yeah, he already qualified through
Nice.
shootout to go. And there's a fish in there eat whopper floppers.
Okay.
I don't know why, but if you don't have a whopper flopper, you ain't getting bit as much.
Interesting.
And he said that to me when he came back from there. Him and Doug Brownridge, they've won half a dozen Renegade tournaments. They won the Renegade Classic. They've won tournaments from one end of Ontario to the other. And they were befuddled the way whopper floppers worked there.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't have them, there's a good chance you weren't winning. Now, mind you, there was a lot of local knowledge came into play.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have a lot of areas to go to fish, you only get a day or two to practice. You've never been there. That comes into play too. But I mean, he said he knew guys that hadn't fished there and they had whopper floppers and they caught the heck out of the fish.
Yeah, and Steve mentioned too, and you're right, Steve, because I know David Chong had mentioned this Dog Lake is the same, he believes, and I do believe you and Chonger were talking about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Dog Lakes to me is a pretty standard, it's a jig type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Milfoil, there's a lot of pads that give up big fish with frogs.
Yeah.
But if you're going to fish a frog in a tournament, you should probably end up throwing the jig in those same pads.
Right.
There's a lot more chance of you hooking the fish and getting it out.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know what it is.
And
Whopper floppers are there's so many of them. I mean, everybody's copied them.
Yeah.
I mean, you can buy them now. I know guys right here, in Kingston that buy them. They just buy 20 of them. They just come. They're just a clear plastic. They're not painted. They all come out of the same mold.
Yep.
Not the ones that are made by Whopper Flopper, mind you.
Correct.
They would have their own molds, and there's something special about them. It's just like a Z-Man chatterbait, the jackhammer.
So I was just going to mention that.
There's something about a jackhammer. I don't know what it is. I mean, every feature it has, somebody will say that's the feature that makes it different. But, there's so many of them out there that are different. Like I was just sitting here wondering, because the other day I caught a lot of fish on a chatterbait with you too.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people will say that the difference is when the blade is attached directly to the hook like that.
Okay.
Which is a patent.
Right.
So, and then if you'll see, this is a chatterbait stealth. It's a little finer with the clear blade in that.
Right.
You see it's attached right to the well, they don't actually use a hook. They have a wire there that comes up, but it serves the same purpose. But everybody out there is making them now, and they have to use a split ring to attach that.
Yep.
or else theoretically they're against the patent. So what's the patent people going to do? Come and knock on your door and tell you you can't make 15 chatterbaits?
Yeah.
It's that type of a thing. You don't have to worry about it. But they say that's the major thing, the difference. But the one I've been using right now, because I ran out of black ones, black jackhammers, was the one that my buddy Mark LaBelle up in the Weapons of Mass Destruction. He's a soldier up in Petawawa, and he made those. And I mean, that one chatterbait. In fact, it's out in the truck. It's the best chatterbait I've ever owned in my life. Just one individual lure. I think a lot of it has to do with the color.
Yeah.
I mean, like the blade has 2 humps in it from where the head hits on the blade now. I've been fishing with it for like 2 years. I haven't got bitten off for it. That's the amazing thing. I go down the back, throw out a $35 or whatever it is, $28 jackhammer. Snip, it's gone.
And because you've got some decent toothy critters swimming around there, as we saw when we were up there. There's some pretty good sized pike in that body of water.
Yeah, I got one off the shore there 2 falls ago that was like 10, 12 pounds.
Wow.
That was kind of shocking for that to happen. That happened on one of the big Freedom chatterbaits, which is under the arm of Z-Man, so it's got the snap connected, or the eye connected right to the blade. But it absolutely walloped it right in front of me, like had like 8 feet of line out.
Yeah, and for no other reason, it doesn't necessarily. Neither Jim or I are sponsored by either of the companies, and not to basically denounce anybody who's out there trying to produce chatterbaits. But I will say you get good bang with your buck if you go with the ones that Jim has mentioned. Only because, as I said, I pulled a bargain basement chatterbait out of my tackle box. No idea where I got it, who made it.
Like Dollarama.
It probably was, and it just didn't swim right. It would swim around in circles. It did all kinds of things other than what it was supposed to do. And it wasn't long after I took Jim's advice and said, stop doing what's not working. So I took it off. But
you should have delved into my tackle box and just rifled through and got what looked good. That's always
open. I did look. I did look, Jim. I'm not gonna lie. I did look, but
I counted them. I'll count everything later.
That's what I figured. So why bother? Why go through the
I heard all the chinking in your pockets when you were walking up from the boat.
Well, that was me counting my money together, going, geez, I hope I can afford Jim being out here.
Hey, the lady you mentioned at the beginning that donated the 2 days.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, that's so nice. Hey, well, I want you to send me her name and get her to get an address, and I'm gonna fill up a box for her.
Hey,
I just think that's just really, really nice.
God bless you. Well, as I said, Christine, I'm sure it was difficult for her to reach out last minute like she did, but it is a family member, and I think we talked about that on the weekend. Family comes first, and in this case,
yeah. Well, it's funny because Luke was supposed to be out with us, and he had some family issues he had to take care of. Yeah. So, he had to cancel, and he felt terrible. But I mean, wow, Steve, frisk him before he leaves next time.
Oh, trust me, he almost did, Steve. He almost did.
Hey,
in a good way.
We filled you up before you left, though.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask. So, last question I have for you is, how did Chonger do the next day?
Not very good.
Okay, well, that ends that conversation.
He came in the door with a smirk on his face. I knew what was going down.
So it was funny because I think at one point you had said it would probably be best if he just went home at this stage. And of course, with the weather the way it went,
he'd never go home. He left here at 5 o'clock this morning in an absolute blistering downpour to go to the Bay of Quinte to practice for a day.
Unreal. So Jim, what is upcoming? We're going to be up obviously at Camp McINTOSH, as you mentioned, this coming week and weekend. What have you got upcoming?
Well, we're working on Just Fishing, which is always, takes up so much of our time here. Yep. And, Tammy's one day here, like one day out, and it's what it is. She wasn't too bad when you were here.
She was amazing. And, big shout out to Tammy. She put on a heck of a spread, as Jim mentioned at the end. This is a woman that is not herself, not 100% by any means. And I tell you, just the way she extended, it was just something to behold. And I can't thank Tammy and yourself enough for opening your hearts to this our CFN
Well,
community.
see, that's why we did dinner the way we did it with, the cold cuts and veggies and that stuff. Because I mean, normally she'd be in the kitchen for 6 hours and be cooking and doing it. So I was telling you, we got a little bit of rain here. There's what we've got in the last 6 hours.
What? 81 mil?
81 millimeters of rain.
Oh, wow!
That's a bit of rain.
That's a lot of rain.
Yeah. Well, I told you the backyard here, the lawn.
You were saying there's a puddle right where we were parked.
Yeah, the water's this deep.
Oh.
Fortunately, it runs toward the lake.
Incredible. Sonia asked a question: are you going to be at the Stokel with the OWA this weekend? No. Okay, and that makes two of us. She said we're going to be up at Camp McINTOSH, but to the OWA ladies, Sonia, if you could pass along a message that, of course, it is Ladies' Night coming up next Monday with Yvonne. So stay tuned here and join us next Monday so that you can have a look at what Yvonne is going to be presenting us. Of course, we will stay tuned for the next issue of Just Fishing. When is that due out, Jim?
Well, everything's pretty well going. In fact, the warden, El Presidente, left this for me to inspect as far as she's got. We still don't have the cover photo. But this is it as it starts. Oh, we got the ice fishing section in. Whoops. I've never figured that out, which way to go. We got the ice fishing here, or no, this is Fishing World's Lunch Big Ad.
Yeah.
And then everything else in here, you got MEPs in there. All the Shimano ones will be in here. We've got an ice fishing section, all kinds of stuff in here.
Well, I will say this, Jim. If I could vote, and I know Tammy would probably agree with me, the picture that you and Chonger took that night that I was coming up.
Yeah. When I caught the big fish at the waterfront. Yeah. I
really think you should probably put that as your front cover because that got a lot of it got a lot of likes.
Well, we got two of those in the last 2 weeks.
There you go.
Like I'm the world champion in a wheelchair. Like he won't even bring a rod down now. He won't even bring a rod down. Nobody will.
And Steve's idea of auctioning off your chair is growing in I would say growing in popularity. But I don't see that chair being auctioned off anytime soon.
Well, I told you, I'm putting that chair in the boat next time I go.
Yes.
I'm throwing the pro pole out and putting the chair and just sit in the chair at the front, and they'll just come to the chair.
That's awesome. Jim, as always, your time flies by with us. We can't thank you enough. And, of course, I can't thank you enough for opening your door this past weekend. We had a lot of fun. I look forward to doing it again.
Well, I got to get you back as soon as possible to finish the thing with Luke. Because you've got a few pieces that he can probably incorporate, and then we'll go out on that day and we'll do it upright and get a really nice video together. And all you bums out there, go subscribe to my YouTube channel.
There you go.
Hey, did you see Mercer passed 150,000 subscribers on YouTube?
I didn't, but congratulations to Dave for that.
Yeah.
And
100. I sent him a note. I said, hey, let me a bunch of those.
I was just going to say, hopefully we can get you to that as well.
I need to get up to the monetization part.
There we go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right on, Jim. Will you take care, my friend? Have yourself a great week. And
don't forget to get me that name and address.
I will. Absolutely.
I'll make her real happy.
You're the best, dude. On that note, Lawrence Gunther's coming up next. Here's a word from our sponsor.
Be safe.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
There he is, Lawrence.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, buddy. How you doing?
Good, man. Hey, you were out fishing with the big guy. Wow.
And I say yes. I got schooled, Lawrence. Needless to say, you know what? It always time with Jim is always just fun time. And the one thing, he is just like anybody else who runs a guide or a charter. he wants to make sure you're catching fish. And you kept saying to him, don't worry. I just suck. We'll get fish. Don't worry. But needless to say, it was an awful lot of fun being out in the water with him. Learned a load, as we always do. But I do know at one point he did turn around. He said, "You going to wet a line, or are you just going to sit there and watch?" I said, "Dude, like I can't turn away. Like I'm watching you dunk and drop like you are. Like there's a bit of technique there. And as I said, because I'm not much of a bass angler, and I certainly don't target them purposely, I learned a lot from Jim this past Saturday.
Nice. Well,
what are you been up to, my friend?
Oh, well, let's see. I was out last Thursday night and on the Ottawa River and hooked a nice 4-pound pike on a giant inline spinner meant for muskie. And then at about 6:30, about half hour before sunset, I was using my brand new junior cannonball, black with a yellow tail. Blup, 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 blup. Gone. And I got a 43-inch muskie on that one. So that was fun. Yeah, that was fun. And so that was a good day. I love catching muskie on top water. There's nothing more satisfying than when they show their ugly faces and not try to annihilate your bait.
Well, I would probably say if we could catch walleye top water, I'd probably just as enthused catching them that way as I would be any other way.
Oh, for sure.
But let's be honest. I mean, does the top water bite get beaten by any other form of presentation? Fly anglers,
right?
Even fly anglers. I don't think any kind of top water bite, I think, trumps any other presentation. And when it's successful, wow, it does. It gets the blood going.
Oh, yeah. So the next day, I was out on the St. Lawrence River and just fishing a stretch of the river I haven't really fished before. And I won't mention it, but there's a strip of land there owned by a friend of mine. He bought it recently, and he wants Bluefish Canada to come and set up some research training things going on there, and then on that land. And so I had a good look at the land from the land side, but I was thinking, well, man, is there even fish out there? So I recruited a buddy who lives on the St. Lawrence, and we brought my boat down, and we ran up there, and man, it was a smallmouth on jerk baits and under blades, swim baits with under blades. And that did really well. There was a rock and sand and weed. And we saw a giant school of carp move through and some schools of perch, lots of perch. So yeah, there was lots of fish right in that area. So 2 thumbs up on that for sure. That was quite exciting. But the St. Lawrence is so diverse. I mean, within a 30-minute run, we were from 1,000 Islands. We were in front of factories. We were, in front of heritage homes from the 1850s. We were shooting, through dams, the spillways of dams. We were fishing alongside sunken wrecks. Like, it's all there, right? And giant ships were passing us by. We could almost reach out with our hands and touch them. It's all there. It's just absolutely a real cornucopia of experiences. And yet the fish live on.
It is true, and for our pleasure, our recreational pleasure, we're happy that they do. But yeah, I tell you, I can't imagine being that close to some of those big water dwelling ships. That's got to be number 3. Playing football out on the ice. Now we're dodging ships. There's nothing you won't do to catch fish either.
Well, and my buddy, he lives down there now, so he's actually come to know all these ships personally. Like, he knows, that's that ship, and it's going to be dropping off a load at such and such a place. He knows their schedule. He knows where they're coming by. He knows what they're carrying. It's fascinating, but we were there's some beautiful fish, and the walleye population is doing great in the St. Lawrence River. The perch is sort of not so much. The weed beds are dropping back, but yeah, it's in transition again. But I think it's on an upswing. But speaking of upswings and what's going on, I got a few bits of news to share with you, buddy.
Let's do it.
All right. Here's something on the West Coast. So I'm trying to go west to east, but I can't guarantee it. But the First Nations community out there is saying that the Department of Fisheries and Ocean is dragging their heels on approving and negotiating and approving a series of interconnected marine protection areas along the coast of Vancouver Island that a whole number of First Nation communities want to establish to, indigenous protected and conserved areas or marine protection areas, call them what you want. But who establishes them, who picks what they're going to be, and who picks what, more importantly, what they're going to be about. And they say DFO's dragging their heels on this. It's been 10 years, they claim. And they say that DFO is not willing to negotiate with them because of the fishing restrictions that these communities want to put in place and have the right to put in place.
So, okay. So are they dragging their heels, or are they just, between a rock and a hard place when it comes to these decisions?
Yeah. We, think about it, right? Like, big fat no, or, let me think about it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, what do you get away with these days? And how do you, there's a lot of super hyper sensitive political, tension going on right now, and for good reasons, but it's also, an opportunity for, if you're negotiating, there's, you got more cards in one hand, it tips the balance a little bit, right? So it's a good time to force your hand. And I think that's what we're seeing here with some of these First Nations communities. They're forcing their hand more and more. They think they've got an opportunity here, and it's probably right. Scotty, you've been involved with these types of negotiations between union and management and for years, right? All about that.
100%. And of course, when it comes to the environment and our waterways, I'm actually kind of glad that DFO is being viewed as dragging their heels, that we're not making a drastic decision. We're not coming to a decision that meets one party first without taking into consideration the other stakeholders that are involved. And, we've seen, I would say most of our DFO MNR lean towards that. We're starting to see a lot of angler input at some of these meetings. A lot more stakeholders are invited when it comes to making decisions on certain water bodies and certain rule changes. Like, we're seeing, I would say, a path towards, I don't want to say reconciliation, because I don't want to use that word. It's being used a lot right now, but there is. And DFO, obviously, it's been tough. They've had to do some PR work, some damage control based on what's gone on in the past in that area. And hopefully, I think they're just waiting to get this right, as opposed to making a drastic decision. Do you agree? Or
I think, when one person one group at the table seems to be having the lion's share of the power in their favor, right? It's not fair to negotiate like that. So maybe when the balance is when there's reestablished a bit of a balance, it might be able to do a fair sort of arrangements.
Right.
It's the same on the East Coast. And I think about, there's another story about DFO and First Nations communities and the lobster fisheries out there. And I'm not a scientist on that. And I just sort of read articles about it. And, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I don't live there. I'm not a First Nations person, and I'm not DFO. But it seems, from what I understand, a number of the First Nations communities have come to agreements with Department of Fisheries and Oceans to fish for lobster, to receive licenses from DFO to fish for lobster, and to do it in a way that sort of respects the conservation measures that the scientists at DFO have sort of come up with to make sure there's lobster around. And the lobster are around. So they must be doing something right. They haven't fished out the lobster. So they're doing something right. And everyone seems to be depending on DFO to do it right. But then there's one community that says, no, one First Nation community says, no, we're just going to fish. We've got our own plans. We got our own conservation measures. We come up with our own strategy. We don't need your licenses. We don't need your permission. We've got the legal right to do it. And they're going out and doing it. And DFO would just keep pulling their nets out and seizing their equipment and seizing their lobster. So, and then you have the Senate of Canada, right, where we have all those lovely, young, bright, spry people. Mm-hmm. And they've issued a report saying that the First Nations people should have the right to do this and do that. And so they've waded in on this argument and in favor of First Nations communities on this particular lobster fishing dispute on the East Coast. So, but they like where are they getting their information from, and how is it politically motivated? Is it ideologically motivated? Is it morally motivated? There's a lot of cards being played right at this point. So it's a challenging thing, and I'm not taking sides on any of this, but DFO doesn't seem to be, just throwing in the blanket either on either coast. So,
well, that's, and that's, I'm thrilled to hear that, because I think that's maybe the stigma of what's happened in the past is we've made too many rash decisions too quickly without, involving the science, without consulting those that are in the know. And I would think that anybody that makes a decision without consulting the science or consulting those who live in the area as stakeholders is making an uneducated decision, and we got to frown upon that. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, they are our landskeepers, our waterway keepers, but First Nations, I don't think anyone would suggest that they don't have a right. What I'd like to see controlled is their ability to overfish and take more than what's necessary. Like we were talking about our Inuit folks up north. And the beluga whales that they're currently in the midst of hunting. And, obviously there's concerns and feelings that perhaps maybe this hunt may come to an end at some point because there won't be any beluga whales left. But when you see and hear how much of that blubber feeds a community and the celebration that is shared amongst the community when one of these whales is harvested, we can't deny that. We can't deny what it means to these communities, to these First Nations, to these Inuit communities. So yeah, I'm not here to say no or put a hard stop to any of it, but let's do it right. And if DFO is dragging their heels to get it right, I salute you, and I'm sure everybody else does too.
And you mentioned the Inuit and the Arctic, and that's my story. I got that story here too. And young Inuit people who want to resume their tradition of hunting from the land and feeding their families and communities, instead of just depending on the Hudson's Bay stores and food being brought up, super expensive food being brought up. Like a lot of Inuit, the majority of the food they eat is from the land, right? It's not from the grocery store. If they had to just eat from the grocery store exclusively, they wouldn't have enough money to do it. So feeding from the land is really important. Caribou and seals and beluga and narwhal, it's all fair game, right? I mean, the beluga and narwhal come in more shallow than the larger whales do. The larger whales are a little more dangerous to hunt. But this is an article by Hackeye Magazine, and they publish pictures of the hunt with young Inuit hunters out in their boats shooting beluga whales in the bay, and then bringing them to the shore and skinning them and gutting them and sharing the flesh in 5-gallon buckets with their community members. Yeah. Right? It's not a ceremonial thing. It's a food thing.
And as I mentioned to you, Douglas, who Steve has just poignantly put on here, Douglas, our Inuit, he's basically our Inuit representative up in the Nunavut area, has shared a lot of wonderful stuff that he's very proud of with his community and should be. And the celebration that the community has when a beluga is hauled into the shore and eventually harvested ethically and within their following and their beliefs, it's remarkable. And the whole community is successful when one is taken out of the wild. But again, it's the number of folks that it feeds and how dependent they are on that blubber to get them through the winter.
And the blubber and the meat. Absolutely. And I think we have so much in common as outdoors people here in the South with our Inuit friends in the North and First Nations people across Canada when it comes to harvesting food, the wild food. We hunt, we fish, they hunt, they fish, we eat it, they eat it. It's not, and yet there's, there are a lot of feelings that the people have too, right? This is anti-hunting is a big thing out there, right? It's a big thing. Anti-fishing too. there's a lot of environmental groups and a lot of environmental foundations that fund these groups that will not touch anything that has to do with fishing or hunting
Right.
in any stretch of the word. But I think because Inuit and First Nations people don't cave to that, they say, no, that's what we do. We hunt and fish, or that's what we do. Don't tell us what to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's made these people rethink their values about hunting and fishing and pescatarianism and veganism and vegetarianism and all of that. And if they can rethink that for our Inuit and First Nations and Métis neighbors and friends, then, you know, you can't pick and choose, right? You can't pick and choose. So we have some strong allies there, and we need to recognize that, because if we're not allied, we can lose our rights. And you know, that happens, and it's always under threat in many places, to the ability to hunt and fish.
Yeah, and there's a couple comments here I want to get to in the comment section. Corey, just like the Eskimo in Alaska, they do hunt whales and seals. They use every bit of the animal, from the meat to the bones, from the whales and the seals, skin. Nothing really gets wasted from the harvest of these animals, and which is a great point. Thanks so much for mentioning that, Corey. Steve has a really good question, one that I think will turn the tides of change when it comes to how DFO is perhaps imaged in the public, or in the public eye. He's asking, is DFO mainly an old boys club, or is there a mix of young blood as well, with a little different mindset, a little more open, I would say?
The old boys club was blown out of the federal government back under Jean Chrétien's days in 1993, when he implemented a hiring freeze inside, from moving people around within the federal government and hiring new people to the federal government. And then he released over 50,000, about 1/5 of the workforce was set free. And those weren't just the youngins, right? They particularly broke up those old boy networks, because you can't have people making decisions around, you know, tables in restaurants at lunchtime and over coffee that need to be taken in offices and boardrooms within the buildings of the government. You know, it's got to be documented. It's got to be transparent. It can't be all cloak and dagger where there's no record. And that old boys network in every department was just completely trounced. It really was. I was just starting in government at that time, and I witnessed that. I was doing a lot of contracts, and I witnessed a lot of these, you know, guys just getting tossed out, guys who were real power brokers getting tossed out of the government. Now, what came behind them were more ideologically driven, very intelligent public administrators that were promoted to run the government very, very ethically and very by the book. And unfortunately, when that pendulum swings all the way over there and everything's done by the book, you lose the ability to sort of, you know, flex to meet reality a little bit. And we've seen some of that now, right, with DFO and other departments, where they've just lost touch a little bit with reality. And that's coming back, I hope, you know, but who do they listen to? You know, which squeaky wheels are getting that oil, and how do, you know, it now more than ever, we need to have voices at those tables, you know, as outdoors people. We need to be squeaky wheels too. We need to be recognized at those tables. We need to have seats at those tables. We can't just take it for granted that there's good people in government looking after us, looking after the majority or the silent majority, or people who just don't show up. And yet you have these smaller groups who are very vocal and very powerful and manage to, you know, punch above their weight class, who get, you know, who are getting their way. So yeah, we have to be at the table. You can't just blow the whole thing up, and you can't just point fingers and say there's a big cabal or a conspiracy. You just need to be at the table. That's all. I got a few more points here.
By all means, go right ahead.
Silver carp DNA has been located in Presque Isle Bay on Lake Erie on the American side. That's never a good sign, eh? So this amazing how they could just take a test tube of water out of the lake and put it under a microscope. I'm simplifying things here, and find the DNA of silver carp. Now, does that mean a giant silver carp swam by and it shed some DNA? Or does it mean there's a whole bunch of little silver carp or spawning silver carp or, so what does it mean? But the fact that they can find this, and it's silver carp and it's in Lake Erie, that's problematic, right? I mean, that's more signs that we need to, is it working? Are we really keeping these guys out of the lakes? So, that's probably.
Well, I think everybody has been fearful of what is going to happen eventually. I think everybody is sort of warmed up to the idea that it's unfortunate to say this, but I do believe there is a time, much like zebra mussels, there was an estimated time of arrival. I don't know what that is for the silver carp. Sounds like it may have already happened, but I think all of us have sort of believed that we can't hold them off forever. Eventually, them and those dreaded bull sharks that we keep hearing reports of in Lake Michigan are eventually going to make their way in the Great Lakes. I'm just kidding. I'm not. I'm just.
Bull sharks? Man, I'm thinking bull shark. Did I miss something here?
You see it all the time. I want to say it posts on April Fools or maybe around Halloween where they say,
but they can live in fresh water.
Reports from Lake Michigan, a bull shark was reported or caught off the, one of these. Anyway, I thought it was time.
Oh my God! You said it with such a straight face.
I know. And you can't even see my face.
I can hear it in your voice.
That makes even. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway. The silver carp is definitely something that we have been worried about for some time. It's unfortunate news to hear. But, I'd like
it's not a death sentence, but it's they're looking, but my goodness, and I know under Trump he put a lot of money into fixing up some of those barriers, $50 million to put new barriers and strengthen the barriers. But is it all too little, too late? I don't know. Time will tell. Hey, here's something. Speaking of crap in the water, apparently, that PFAS chemical, right, that we use in our Scotch Guard and our fire retardant and our frying pans and our clothing, all this cheap ass waterproof clothing we buy now, all this stuff, pants, for $25, it's waterproof. This shit is in the rain now. Everywhere in the world, it's coming down in the rain. They're finding it. So the idea of just drinking rainwater, running off, it's not, you're going to get away from this stuff.
Well, I'm not, I show of hands, anybody surprised? I know I'm not. We've been pumping stuff up into our atmosphere for a number of years now. Eventually it's all going to come down. What goes up must come down. But yeah, I would have to agree that we are starting to find ways of creating levels of what are acceptable. And I think this is just one more byproduct of human life that we are now going to have to find an okay level with. That it's going to have to be an acceptable level. Because do we get rid of it? Can we get rid of it? I don't know.
I know, and they call it forever chemicals for a reason, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's like Scotch Guard and water resistant treatments and the frying pan coating. The crap lasts, right? Yeah. You scrub it, you scrape it, you wash it, it's still there.
Yeah.
So be careful what we ask for.
It really is. At the end of the day, unfortunately, I think we may have to get back to what it was, or the old school type of things, and what may be old then, it might be new again. Only because we may have to reintroduce how we approach things, how we properly waterproof things, how we provide no-stick qualities to our cooking ware. Like there's a whole bunch of things that we have evolved with, and I must say I'm proud to say that we've gotten it right and we've curbed our use of it. But this is just one more example of how we have not.
Yeah, ask questions like why. Just always think about why is this such a miracle, And there's very good thing. There's a downside. It's good that we understand that what that is, even if the rules aren't there necessarily to say, okay, that sounds good, but if it's not in a food and it's not a pharmaceutical, so we don't really test it for health issues, right? Yeah. Unless someone can prove that there's a health issue. But if you don't have proof, you have to shut up.
Yeah.
So hang on, here's something else. Back to the DFO. So Minister Murray put a closure on the cod fishery on the northern Gulf of St. Lawrence. It was a small fishery going on there, and she said, take that down. And this is all in the, we are in the 30th anniversary of the closure of the cod fishery on the East Coast 30 years ago this year. And here's the minister said, everyone wants to see it back. Everyone wants to fish again. And there's signs of it coming back. But if you open up the tap of fishing, you can quickly beat that little sign of life into obliteration, right? So that's what DFO is saying. Oh, look, there's signs. Yes, we recognize there's cod out there. Yes, we recognize there's schools of cod out there now. But look at the size of them. Look at the age of them. Look at the number of them. You guys go out there and catch them all, or catch a pile of them, and you just set the recovery back another 5 years, another 10 years. Just hold on.
So interesting, because I would have expected a different type of announcement, one that would allow the inshore fishermen to start harvesting cod in great numbers, because I had heard that the inland or the coastal fishery was doing quite well, and that we would see an opening of restrictions as opposed to what you're saying, we're closing fishery. So that's a bit of a 180 from what I expected.
Yeah, this was on the north shore of the Gulf of St. Lawrence, which is, I'm not sure how that differs. Apparently there might be a lot of seals that live up that way as well, So, they're laying a beating on the cod too, to a degree. So, this balance, you got to give the cod a chance to, I don't know. There's a lot of things at play there. Yeah. And the cod move in and out. Like they're, 1 minute they're out in the ocean, and then they come close to land to feed and to spawn, I guess, and then they move out again. So yeah, when they come in and they're near a bay and they're near shore, they seem like an incredible pile of fish, right? Mm-hmm. But out in the ocean, it's just a speck. So
interesting. I just saw this comment come up to get back to our PFAs and the announcement that you were making in regards to that. Something that's interesting, you don't hear this much of anymore. It's not to say that it's disappeared, but we don't talk about acid rain like we used to.
I know, because we beat that one down. Because we made all those nasty factories that were spewing all that sulfur and crap into the air with their super tall smokestacks to actually put scrubbers in those smokestacks and filters, and not just think, we're shooting it way up into the atmosphere. It's not going to hurt anybody. No, that turned out wasn't a great idea. So those smokestacks, like, you remember going up to Sudbury, right, in the Big Nickel, and how the land was just totally devoid of any plant life at all. There's not a tree, not grass. It was just like a lunar landscape back in the 70s. And now it's it's fertile.
100%. And it's interesting that Toronto was always called the Big Smoke for a reason. And if you see any pictures or paintings back in the day of the Toronto skyline, you think smog is bad now. It was a lot thicker back then.
Oh, yeah.
It's not to say it's not more poisonous now, the smog that we're breathing in, because of course we're talking about PFAs and a whole bunch of other chemicals that are getting thrown into our atmosphere. But no, so to answer Steve Shaw, Jimi Hendrix did not bottle up all the acid rain.
Well, we're not sure about that. Absolutely.
And human intervention certainly has decreased the amount of it to a point where, as we just mentioned, you're not talking about it. We're not talking about it near as much as
and we're not talking about the hole in the ozone layer anymore either, because we stopped letting CFCs and air conditioning systems just be leaked out into the atmosphere either, right? We put a stop to that, and those holes in the ozone layer sealed back up, and sheep stopped having cancerous eyes, and we can win some. We can win some for sure.
And I've heard different stances on that whole issue with the hole in the ozone, that it's there, it's still there, it's bigger than it's ever been, yada yada yada. But to me, the fact that we have cut back on the consumption of certain products that have led to a degrading of the ozone layer, I think is a huge step in the right direction. So hopefully we get it right over time. Yeah,
we took the lead out of the gasoline, and the only reason they put lead in gasoline was to lubricate our engines so they wouldn't seize up, right?
Exactly.
Burning lead.
True. Any last ones just before we let you go?
So fish trap. Oh yeah, Peter Cron has spent now $2.6 million turning pontoon boats into fish traps, and he's building his third one now on the West Coast. And First Nations communities are paying for a lot of this, and they want to use fish traps. They don't want to use gill nets. They want to use these fish traps because it's a way of selectively harvesting fish and letting the ones you don't want, letting them go. They're absolutely fine. They never get stuck in the net. They never get hooked. They just get fed into these traps by these sort of wing nets that the fish follow, and then they get released. They get selectively harvested. So here's a guy that's just, he's spending his whole retirement and his money, his own personal money, getting this stuff, designing and engineering and testing these things. It's amazing.
Is there a link at all, Lawrence, that we can take people to? Because some folks may not understand what a fike net is, or a wing net, or any other kind of net that we use to collect fish.
I'm going to have a link to an article in an upcoming newsletter. I just interviewed Peter again on the weekend. I'm in touch with him a lot over the last 3 years. We had him on Bluefish Radio 2 years ago, and he just had some. So I just interviewed him again, and we'll get some pictures up and things. But yeah, wing nets are more like just walls, temporary walls, right? That fish just bump into and and then they just follow the wall. And as they're trying to swim up current, they're trying to get around that wall. And then this is how First Nations people trap fish for thousands and thousands of years. They never used nets. They used these weirs, just little walls that, the fish they would funnel the fish into sort of corrals, and then they would get the fish they wanted, and then open the corral up, and the fish would just swim through.
Yeah. And to me, if it's checked on the regular, nets like this will allow fish in our creel samples to swim away.
Oh yeah.
More traditional selective harvest type science, unfortunately, doesn't necessarily allow those fish to return to the wild. Some unfortunately are killed in the process. It is what it is. It's for the sake of science, and it's totally understandable. But the fact that us humans, and I know Jay can speak on this, waiting in that cold water, in early spring, late fall to do these creel samples, be nice if we could do it from the comfort of a pontoon boat.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's probably a far more effective way, because you can maneuver the boat in such a way as opposed to having to pull it like we normally do.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's a lot more.
It's a mobile. You can move them around. Like if the run's here, the run's going to be on this part of the river these 2 weeks. You can set up and then take it down and move it to another spot, right? So
100%.
Very mobile technology. You don't have to. It's not that labor intensive to set up. It's all pretty cool. Hey, last story, buddy.
Yes, sir.
American eels, right? Like American eels used to make up like 80% of the biomass in the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River and the Ottawa River. I mean, First Nations people, that was their main diet. I mean, America's eels, we harvested them right up until the 80s and exported them over to the United States. It was a huge fishery. Now we're down to about 1% of what we used to have. And you would think that with all this research about how important they were as a commercial fishery, and now trying to help them recover and before we obliterate them right off the map on the East Coast here, you think we'd figure out how they spawn and where they spawn, right? No, we still haven't even figured that one out.
I don't know if we know much about the American eel. I mean, I know it's an endangered species, and it's one that if you're told if you catch one, you got to throw it back immediately. I mean, in regards to what we know about the science of how they reproduce, where they reproduce, we know very little about that species, I would imagine.
We can't even put them in a tank and get them to reproduce, right? We can't even figure out how to do it in a hatchery.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously they're not domesticated, so I don't expect them to lay eggs in an aquarium. But the fact that, maybe Jay can fill us in. I know very little about them myself, but it'd be interesting to see what.
I'll be listening.
Scientist take is on it. But as always, Lawrence, thanks so much for you joining us each and every Monday. Just a plethora of knowledge again and news. As I said, folks, if you are interested in some of the stuff that Lawrence has talked about, please go over to Bluefish Canada and Bluefish Radio and run into some of these articles that Lawrence is talking about. And hopefully you'll get to see a picture of what these nets look like that are being used. Because I think you'd be interested to see how they work. And it really, it's old school technology with a little bit of new school flair. And I'm so glad to hear about it, because the fish will be the winners of it all in the end.
Thanks a lot, Scotty. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. You take care, Lawrence.
Appreciate it.
Bye now. Bruce is with us. Good evening, Bruce. I know you've had a bad string of luck recently. Of course, our CFN community is thinking about you and all you're dealing with. American eels don't care if they are in danger. They continue these harvests. And yes, absolutely. Something that we have to pay attention to. And Jay, who's coming up next, and all those who won a bait fuel prize pack for the Fish ID contest, you're going to want to stay tuned, because the name wheel is up and running. And if your name is on it, there's a chance you're going to be taking home a prized possession that is being made available to us from Jay Barnucz himself. If you are interested in the Encyclopedia of Fish ID, stay tuned, because that very person, Jay Barnucz, is coming up next. But we have to have a word from his sponsor first.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural, man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
Jay Dogs in the house. How you doing, Jay?
Good, Scotty. How are you doing?
Fantastic, my friend. Thanks for sharing that. So all American eels only produce in one place, which is in the Atlantic Ocean, in around the Sargasso Sea. Interesting.
So it's an area of the Atlantic Ocean that's off the east coast of the U.S., around like New Jersey and Maine and Massachusetts, and northeastern U.S., and basically all the American eels from everywhere. So from Europe, from the Mediterranean, from Canada, from U.S. waters, they all follow the currents to the Sargasso Sea, and that's where they reproduce. And the Sargasso Sea, now I'm not an eel expert by any means. There are people that are. A lot of the eel stuff I know is honestly watching like David Attenborough shows. Like, to be honest,
I know. Okay, that's interesting.
And when you're like me, you grew up watching those. No, that's probably why I am where I am, because of watching those great old nature shows.
100%.
You know, but the eels. So in Ontario, I don't want to dwell on eels too long because it's kind of a sad story. But with eels, so primarily what you're seeing in the Great Lakes is female American eels, not males.
Oh.
And they go way up into the Great Lakes. Like, they used to travel up like as far as Niagara Falls. And there's been a few records of them getting beyond that area because of the Welland Canal, we believe to be. But they would travel up the Ottawa River. There's records of American eel from Algonquin Park like 100 years ago. So before we had hydro dams, they would work their way. As we build hydro dams, a lot of those large females, which are just like most fish populations, the large females are the ones we want to protect, right? We know this. And if you're losing a lot of those females because of hydroelectric dams, because they simply can't go back down. And they don't go to, I don't believe they go to the Sargasso Sea like every year. It's every so many years. And so, it just basically their population just bottomed out because of hydroelectric developments, mainly. So,
well, I was going to say, I'm sure there's a timeline where we started damming our waters and our numbers of eels started to drop. I'm sure there's a lot of truth to that. As we started to manipulate how water flowed going forward, it has changed quite a few things.
Yeah.
And, eels is definitely one of them. But interesting stuff to talk about that. And of course, we are going to be giving away the Fish ID book later on in the segment. Congratulations to all the winners that did get the Fish ID right. you will be hoping, at least I hope you'll be watching later on in Jay's segment where we'll be giving away the Bible when it comes to Fish ID. So stay tuned to that.
But I want to talk about a couple things. So first of all, I'm so happy that you brought up, well, I say happy, but the Steve Derbyshire Memorial. Okay, so I actually knew Steve when I was starting out in my job as a field biologist. I was a little wet behind the ears. I was in my mid-20s and had to figure things out. And I did a lot of work down the Leamington area, Wheatley area. And Steve at the time was on contract with the Wheatley M&R office, which is the Lake Ontario Assessment Unit. And Steve, he was a jack of all trades. That guy could fix anything. And back in those days, I was the new guy on the block at work. I got the old crappy trucks, like no air conditioning, no power windows, no heat shield in the back seat, so your flip flops would melt to the floor. Like this, I'm not joking. We got the crappiest trucks, and we had this one truck. The starter would go on it once in a while. So Derb would come out of the shop because we worked out of the Wheatley office quite a bit, and he'd come out and he'd get his hammer or crawl under the truck with his no shirt on and whack the starter a few times on that old Ford F-250, and off we go. That's how we got started many times. He even gave me a hammer one day because I didn't have a hammer to use. Better take this with you, Jay, just in case you get stopped. You have to stop for gas and it won't start again. Give that starter a couple knocks underneath the truck.
Well, then we can hopefully dive into what you know of him because some of us don't. He is a resident legend in the area.
I only knew him in passing, and I didn't ever work with Steve, but we were almost colleagues. I worked for the feds, he was with the province, but I worked on boats. He had to order boats sometimes and would consult with me on specifics. And he was not only a great angler, he was probably one of the best waterfowl hunters in southwestern Ontario. And southwestern Ontario is probably the best waterfowl area in Canada. And he was one of the top hunters in that area. And the video I just shared, I encourage everyone to go click on it. It's a Facebook video from Steve's funeral. And there's probably about 50 or 100 friends and family outside of the funeral home. And as the hearse was leaving, everyone's on their goose or duck calls as it's pulling away.
No way.
Yeah. So click on that video. I don't know the woman who shared it. I kind of got teared up a little bit today when I was watching it. Just because honestly, I hadn't talked to Steve in years, but if you saw Steve, if I ran into him in Wheatley or in, anywhere those places, I stop at the gas station, I run into him once in a while. It's like I never not saw him. It's like, hey dude, how's it going? And we would just catch up and talk. And he was one of those guys. My favorite Steve story was Derb he always had hunting dogs, great hunting dogs. And he was a fantastic hunting dog trainer. And he had the best trained dogs. And the one day Wheatley M&R used to do a Friday lunch barbecue. So, when you're on the road, you get a home cooked meal, get a burger and some potato salad. So we'd stop in Wheatley for lunch sometimes. And Derb was always cooking the burgers. And he had a big black lab. I forget the lab's name, but this was chocolate lab, big chocolate lab. And this was like 100-pound lab, huge thing. And this lab come around the corner of their workshop, and it had a chicken in its mouth.
Oh, geez.
So shows up and is standing there with the chicken, all proud, and Derb walks up, smacks the lab on the head. Now this lab was so big, it was just like a little tap, and that lab dropped the chicken and the chicken took off. And Derb looks at me and he goes, I don't know where he's getting these chickens from, but that's a third one this week. That's a classic Derbyshire story from my dealings with Steve. There was always something going on with him that would just make you laugh.
I don't know where he's getting these things.
So somebody in Wheatley down by the harbor had a chicken coop nearby, and this lab would wander off, catch a chicken, and retrieve it. It was a retriever, right? It would retrieve the chicken, bring it back to Steve. Steve would smack it on the head, and the chicken would take off.
which is no small accomplishment. Like anybody ever had chased the chicken? Like, good luck. I mean, there's
Has anyone ever watched Rocky? Like,
I was
come
going
on,
to say
like,
they do it in the Rocky movie for a reason. I feel like a Kentucky Fried Idiot, but regardless, that's hilarious. That is actually hilarious. Wow.
Yeah, he was, and you know what? Even when I didn't talk to him personally, like if I was going down to work down there, I wanted to know about access to a marsh or to a pond that was down there. He'd always help me out. Even if I hadn't talked to him in years, he'd always help me out. He's just a great guy. And it's definitely a sad day losing somebody like Steve, but his memory will live on for a long time. He's touched so many lives.
Jay has shared it. I invite you all to go over and have a look at it because his following, his reach was very, very far.
Oh, it was incredible.
When we posted the Thinking of You, Steve, that Steve Shaw did the edit for. We got a lot of really positive feedback from that. So you could tell his reach was incredible, and he has touched a lot of people. So there's a lot.
He was friends with politicians at all levels of government. Everybody knew Steve Derbyshire. Derb was fantastic. So, yeah, just great story, and thanks for doing that. When I saw your opening, I didn't expect that, and I was just really happy to see you do that in the CFN group. So thanks to everyone who made that. And toast to
Jeremy
Steve.
Vaughn. Well, Jeremy Vaughn reached out recently and asked if we were going to be doing anything. And of course, the fact that we did an edit, and I actually remembered that edit. And then when I looked back in our timeline and saw that we had done a little Thinking of You, Steve, in regards to his chemo that he would have to go back and start taking with the cancer coming back like it did. Unfortunate news. And at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're all members of a fishing community, angling community, hunting community, and we all feel the loss. Whether you knew him, whether you didn't, somehow, some way, he has improved your angling experience, your hunting experience. So, on behalf of all of us here, Steve, to your family, we wish you all the best. Hope you rest in peace, and thanks for all the work you've done.
So I want to share something that I found today kind of neat, So today was the memorial for Queen Elizabeth.
Yep.
And, I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but we lost a leader in this world, and she was one of the longest standing royalty ever, and she's seen a lot. She loved to fish.
I did not know that.
So where Balmoral Castle is in Scotland, where that was her favorite place to go. And actually, Prince Charles, now King Charles, Prince Philip, Queen's husband, who passed away last year, the grandkids, the great-grandkids have all been fishing at Balmoral Castle in the Dee River. So I shared a link there to a video where a guide explains how much Queen Elizabeth loved fishing. And she would fish for Atlantic salmon, sea run trout. I saw a YouTube video that was kind of grainy from like the 1950s when they took Queen Elizabeth and her family went fishing on the Dee River with Winston Churchill. This was in the 50s, just after the World War ended.
I'm not here to lay claim on anyone, but I know the Downs family followed the monarchy to a T. And
yes.
Bruce has just mentioned the Queen Mother also enjoyed fishing.
They were all avid anglers. And I even read an article today about Queen Elizabeth, sturgeon, and there's another species of fish. It'll come to me. And they basically received royal assent. So if you killed a sturgeon in the United Kingdom, they were her own fish. That's how the law was written.
Oh, wow.
So sturgeon received protection directly by the Queen. They were hers.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
I didn't know that. I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah, and she's been fishing she's been fishing here in Canada, in the United States, and Kenya. And she regularly went fishing on many of her tours that she would go on.
That is interesting. And swans, saying, and swans, she protected swans.
Swans, yes.
Yeah, good point.
Bruce is on it, man. He's on it.
Well, as I say, he follows the monarchy. I know he was up early this morning watching the funeral, as I'm sure most of the family Downs family was. But yeah, truly, we've lost a long-standing monarch that all of us, no matter how long in the tooth we know and have known for some period of time. For the younger folks, I don't know if the monarch like we're supposed to know it. There's just because of the tabloids and social media, and the monarch has definitely taken a hit in the just the not so recent years. Anyway, I digress, but. Needless to say, at the end of the day, someone that has laid claim and been in power and given a lot over the years, we truly will miss her. I know there's a lot of factions out there that didn't like her, didn't like the monarchy. So you have your opinions, and by all means, you're welcome to them.
But we lost somebody in this world who loved her family and loved fishing. So for that alone, we will, I'll have my condolences to her and her family. So because we all can relate to that, because at the end of the day, for a lot of people in this world that we all know, and if we go, actually, let me put it this way, if we go anywhere in this world and I meet somebody that loves fishing, and everywhere I go in this world, I meet someone who loves fishing. I went to Kyrgyzstan with my mother on a trip and took orphids fishing, and I met anglers there who fish in the mountains of Kazakhstan. Like, I meet anglers everywhere I go. It's something that brings us together. And I never realized how much the Queen's and her family, her mother included, as Bruce pointed out, like they love fishing. So for that alone, I revere her even more.
And Jay, you've touched on something that truly is something that doesn't get mentioned enough. But just think of it. Everybody who's watching tonight, can you imagine if you weren't an angler? First of all, we would never have met. Like Jay, you and myself would never have met. You wouldn't be watching here tonight. CFN wouldn't exist. I wouldn't have met, the beloved Big Jim Lawrence and yourself. There's so many people that are in my life now that I'm so happy that are there that I would not have met had we not had that common bond. Had we not, discovered the love of fishing between ourselves, amongst ourselves. So yes, you're so right. We have to never forget that. And as large of a community as it can be, it can also be very, very small. So how you conduct yourself within that community is crucial to where you are seated, I guess, at the table.
100%.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share something else with the group tonight. And this is something that I've come across. And I share tips once in a while, but I don't always share all the tips I have. But I got to share this one, Scotty, because this is something that I've been fighting with for a while. And I finally found, I think, the perfect thing. And it's going to cost you $1, and it's going to save you a lot of aggravation. So, especially as a multi-species angler, what do we use a lot of? Leader. Fluorocarbon.
Fluorocarbon. Right? Yeah.
I got spools of 2 pound, 4 pound, 6 pound, 8 pound, 10 pound, 12 pound, 14, 17, 20 pound. I got 40 pound tests that I use for my big channel cat fishing. And we got all different sizes. I usually buy the bigger spools because you get more fluorocarbon. And if you take care of the spool, it lasts a long time. But what does fluorocarbon do, Scotty?
Twist,
falls off your spool.
Yeah.
Like I've been walking through my fishing room, and it's like someone's tried to snare a rabbit. There's like some 12-pound fluorocarbon that is hanging out of a box, and it gets caught up in your foot, and you're like, geez, next thing you know, like there I am, like tripping over sideways. I found it, man. And you can buy different lure tamers and line tamers and spend a lot of money. So I bought these. So that's a spool tamer. It's designed for the wire industry. Okay. See that?
Oh,
it's stretchable. It's got a little hole in the top.
Interesting.
Okay. Amazon, $25 for 25 tamers.
Boom, shakalaka.
Look at that. And you can tighten it. So on the big spools, you don't have to adjust it. You just give that a pull, make sure it's nice and not twisted. And I can just take that, pull it out. And on the small ones, same thing. And you get a whole bag of them.
Brilliant.
And I'm sharing it right now in the chat. Done.
Oh, that is awesome. I have been looking for something exactly like that for years. I used to put them, you meant, the old Plano cases where you could put like 4 or 5 different lines in that Plano case. I had like several of those running around. Those go missing. I had at least 2 of them up here. I had no idea where they are now, but that is so cool.
Oh, wow. I'm going to show you one. Trevor's going to pass it to me. So this is and I still use this a lot for organizing my line. So if I'm going on a trip, this is from Berkeley, okay? And what I do is I put my line inside, and this is all my braided line, okay? Now in the front here, it is handy. There's a little spot for your label, and you can put the line through there, okay? But still, I find that it still now this is great because it's got little inserts, keeps the spools organized. So I got a couple of these, one for braid, one for mono. But I find that spooling it still gets kind of twisted inside. But the box, this bag is great for organizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Now for leaders, I got these little they're wire tamers. And I've seen similar on fishing websites, like all support small business, but they were with shipping, handling, and customs. It was going to cost $5 a piece. Now you get them for $1. And someone out there should market these. I'm not in the marketing business, but someone out there, there's a lot of great small companies within the CFN community. Someone should find these and resell them. I'm not even joking. I'll buy it off somebody. They are cool things to use. Hands down.
There you go. There's a tip for anybody looking to make a quick buck and so
service. Corey made a point, and I used to use the hair ties, and I shared a tip on this show about a year or so ago where I took a little needle and I threaded the needle through the hair tie, but I still found that I needed to find the right hair tie depending on the spool diameter. And sometimes when the fluorocarbon is like a heavier pound test, the hair tie would dig in between the strands of fluorocarbon, and it wouldn't come out as smooth. And if the hair tie wasn't thick enough, it would still pop off the spool at times.
Right.
It helped for sure. Instead of like, if I just dropped this 15-pound test of Berkeley Trilene in my bag, it would just explode because fluorocarbon jumps off, right? But now I got these little tamers, and I'm going to put them on all my spools aligned. So.
Mike, I just respooled my ripping line off another old reel. I'm pretty sure it's ice fishing line too. Yeah, that happens. It happens.
Yep.
Did you get out fishing much this past week?
Yeah, a lot. So we went out. Where did we go? We went to a new lake on Saturday, a lake that I've only ever ice fished. Mike brings up ice fishing. So it's a small kettle lake. Little drive from home, not too far, and only ice fished it for panfish. Never ever fished in a boat, but now we have kayaks. Yeah. So I said, let's go check this place out. And you know what? It wasn't the best fishing we've had. A lot of small bass in there, a lot of skinny fish. That's why I was asking the pre-show about water temperatures, because down here I've seen some drops in water temperature, but we're still in that low 70s. Like in the morning, it'll be like 69. And then it creeps its way up into like 73 by midday. Still algae on the water. We're just not in that fall. We haven't had any cool nights yet. I see some cool nights coming in the forecast, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, we caught a bunch of fish on Saturday in this small place, but they were all small fish. And then yesterday we got blown around yesterday. We fished for 12 hours yesterday in the kayaks, and we did 6 hours in one place. And we got tired of the people and the slow fishing. We got a few fish, but nothing huge. Trevor got a nice one. Trevor got 19 and a quarter on his first cast. There you go.
I will say that how he presented his story was brilliant. I'm not even sure how you do it, but you click on the link and it takes you right to the weight of. That was brilliant how he presented that.
But you know what it's like when you catch a big fish on your first cast? How's the rest of your day go? So
unless of course you're fishing with Big Jim.
Unless you're fishing with Big Jim. That's right.
And that just means you don't catch any big fish at all because he's got them all up front.
I know. I'm going to buy Jim a pool thermometer and send it to him, keep it in his pocket. I want to know what the water temps are up in Sealy Bay, just so because I know when it starts cooling down up there, it'll eventually cool down here. But I'm going to guess up there is probably in the mid to high 60s. Like they're a little further along in fall weather than we are down here. But because of the stuff, the story you guys described of those fish, like that's classic fall bass fishing.
Yep.
And we're just not there yet. We're probably another week or two away from that type of pattern picking up around here. So
Hey, I was stunned at how fast baits could move and we'd still get bit. I as I said, I couldn't have reeled it in any faster. And I just said, hold on, Jim, we got a double header here, dude. I was not expecting this to happen, but as fast as that reel could spin, and all of a sudden, boom, this bass came out of freaking nowhere. But
Jim's point, like sometimes you can reel it in as fast as you want. Like I got my Abu Garcia rockets here. They got a 40 inches per turn gear retrieve, probably the fastest bait caster on the market. And I can't reel them in fast enough some days when fish grab them. Now, one thing I do like about a fast retrieve reel is when you're flipping and pitching, right, Scotty? You know, I was talking to Trevor about this the other night. I actually got up in the kitchen and measured the length of the kitchen, and I got 2 reels out, and I said, okay, this reel can bring a lure across. So our kitchen's about 30 feet from dining room to kitchen counter. And I said, the rocket can bring a lure. It's about 6 cranks to bring it through the whole kitchen. The reel he was using was almost double that. And I said, yeah, because he had the wrong reel on there. He had a lower gear retrieve.
Oh, it's the other way. Okay.
Right? So it's slower.
Yeah.
So I said, you're trying to get a fish. So, you know, those Texas rig fish and those weeds, they grab it and they don't necessarily cooperate. Sometimes they're coming, especially the bigger ones, they usually head for deep water, and it's usually towards you because you're fishing deep and they're in shallower and they're coming right at you. And you got to catch up to that fish. So you set and you got to catch up to that fish, right? Mm-hmm. A fast retrieve reel will get you there quicker. And you can make more casts because you make your cast 2 or 3 cranks for another cast. Whereas instead of 6 or 7 cranks of a slower reel. And we talk about gear retrieve ratio, which is really important. But what I like to do is I like to look at inches per turn. I kind of ignore the whole gear retrieve. Like, and you can have 2, 3 reels that are all 8-to-1, and they can all have different inches per turn because it's based on spool diameter, right? So one could be 36 inches per turn, one could be 34, one could be 30. You know, and we're talking 6 inches per turn difference. When you're talking 12 turns of the reel, you're talking feet of line, right? So, like, I encourage anglers, when you're looking for a new bait caster, if you're out in the market for one, look at the inches per turn. You give up a little bit of torque in a fast reel, but you don't have as much power sometimes. But most of those reels compensate for that with having a larger handle and wider handle. But definitely, I think flipping and pitching with a fast retrieve reel, and people think, well, I'm only pitching it like 20 feet at a time or even 10 feet. Why do I need fast? It's that getting that fish out fast, getting that hook set properly. And then also between casts, I'm actually having to turn the handle less and I make more casts in the day. Yeah. And that's a big help too. And when you do the math on it, I think it can make a big difference.
100%. And you'll find out too, for those like yourself who know, you know, at one point I had said to Jim, you know, maybe I'll throw a craw and I'll do some dropping and dipping or whatever it is that we call it. And he just looked at me and he said, Scotty, all fairness, dude, what you have there, you're not going to get it out of that cover. And how it was explained, like a bait caster, the advantage of it is a winch. You know, I know Steve and I talked about it. That thing is just a winch. And if you load up the rod, like you said, a quick speed retrieval reel makes all the difference in the world between getting that fish out of that cover and not. And
now the difference though, if I'm using a chatterbait or a swim bait, which, you know, Jim talked a little about chatterbaits tonight, was one of my favorite baits to use.
Yeah.
I don't like to use a high speed reel on those. I find I retrieve them too fast. My favorite's like a 6.6 or a 7-to-1 for those. Mm-hmm. It forces me to slow it down because I'm too quick with it. Mm-hmm. And especially I've gone to using like a lighter rod, or I'll use like a crankbait rod, like a moderate action rod. Because those bass, when they hit a chatterbait, you can pull it away from them when the rod's too stiff. So this weekend, I'm flipping a jig on an 8-to-1, 9-to-1 reel, and then, you know, I get in the next bait, I'm like, this looks like a chatterbait spot, and I'm putting the 9-to-1 down. I'm picking up a 6-6-to-1 and casting my chatterbait around. So
There
You know, different reels. That's why the guys at the ramp are all laughing. Like, why do you need 6 rods on your kayak? I'm like, because I do. They all serve a purpose. And Steve, you're right. 12 hours. So Steve, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a statistic. I've been tracking so I have a Garmin EchoMap 9-inch on my kayak. Okay, with side scan. All right. So I've been tracking how far I've gone in the kayak. So since I started kayak fishing in August, so 1st of August, maiden voyage, I have traveled 145 kilometers in that kayak.
Holy smokes.
So whether that's pedaling, drifting, that's fishing. So I've gone 145 kilometers. Scotty, that's basically from where I live to past where you live.
That's all. That's a workout. That is a workout.
And I won't lie, man. I had a couple of Advil last night. I had a Ryan ginger ale just to kind of the one hamstring was a little tight last night. I'm not gonna lie.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Jay, what's upcoming? If you have anything to add before we get to the great prize,
I got nothing. Trevor's fishing in the high school Ontario High School Championship this weekend. That's coming up. So he's down here in the fishing room right now, getting his gear ready because I'm on the road again this week. Where am I going? Chatham. I'm going to Chatham for a couple of days, and then we're heading to Bay of Quinte this weekend. So I'm not fishing. I'm going to be at the hotel, coaching, helping retie, being a bench dad. You know that's like Scotty, bench dad.
Absolutely.
Right?
I've never done it for fishing, so you got one on me.
It's the same. It's the same as hockey, same as baseball. You're on the sidelines and you're an armchair dad calling in your plays, even though you should just learn to keep your mouth shut. And
that's just it. Because parents would ask me, they Scotty, like, were you a good hockey player? Heck no.
Yeah.
You know, the kids play hockey because the old man can't. That's was right. My attitude. So it'd be no different with the fishing.
100%, man.
As we saw with Uncle Jim there. Yeah, you just take him out.
So yeah. We'll be down in Trenton this weekend. I'm not sure if we're going up Thursday night or Friday morning, or there's a few last minute details we got to figure out. But yeah, that's this weekend. And then after that, I don't know, man. I hope some of this nice weather. I hope we cool down, but not too much. I got a few more bass I want to catch before we get into steelheading. So
living vicariously through our kids and our CFN community. That's what we do. Absolutely, Steve.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Well, let's share the screen. We'll get up the name wheel so that there it is. So we will share that. So those are all our winners that have managed to fish ID, fish in the past correctly, namely Lloyd, Richard, our good buddy Nick, who won many times and also basically gave back his prize so that others could win. So, Nick, we're really pushing that you win this. Tony's in there as well. Barry and Sally managed to win a bottle. So we have these 5 incredible CFNers that are standing a chance to win the Fish ID. Do you have it with you by chance, Jay?
Got the book right here.
So there it is right there. Let me go to the big screen so you know what it is.
And just inside, like I'll show you, like we'll give you an example here. So there's randomly, there's the black bullhead page. There's the range map, distribution, habitat, identification, lots of good detail in there, and all Ontario fishes, which, to be honest, also covers a lot of fishes out in the prairies and Quebec as well. So good book.
Great read. Just a nice book to have around just in case, for what if on those rainy days, those snowy days, which, let's face it, Barry and Sally get enough of them up in the Timmins area. It's a good read. So we invite all of you.
And if you're going to CFN fish off in the future, that's the book you're going to want to have. I really believe that. So
amen, brother. So as always, it is the last man standing. Jay, if you could please pick me a number between 1 and 3.
We're going 3. Trevor says 3. Yeah.
All right. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. We just shuffled the deck, and we will spin and remove anglers, or our winners, I should say, as they appear in the last angler standing. Look at that. Nick is the first to leave us. And Nick, thanks so much for all your guesses.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. You were a huge component to this. So we thank you so much for your involvement. We have 4 anglers left. We will find out who is taking home this book. It's not going to be our beloved Lloyd out in Saskatchewan. We have 3 left: Tony, Barry and Sally, and Richard Dunlop. I would say my money right now is on Barry and Sally. They usually have a pretty good chance of winning. The last 3 here, and it's going to be close. Barry and Sally. No, it's not going to be Barry and Sally. Did I ever pick that wrong? All right.
Here we go.
Tony, here we go. Who's our winner? Who is going to get this next incredible edition of Fish ID here in Ontario for their coffee stand, night table? Look at that. It looks to be the one and only Richard Dunlop. Tony's friend, Richard Dunlop, is our winner. Congratulations to you, Richard. And this is a great little keepsake. It's definitely something that I enjoy reading. I'd like to see an updated copy like the one you have, but what I've seen in the past, it is phenomenal, and it's a great read for any.
And Richard, if you're listening, send me a message and with your address and phone number, and we'll get it out to you, and might throw a few extra things in the bag.
Right on. Jay, as always, dude, thanks so much for all you do. I wish nothing but good luck to you and Trevor this weekend out in the Bay of Quinte. Hope you catch us a whale, and we will see you next Monday. Thanks so much for doing this, by the way, my friend. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good week. We'll see you next week.
Take care, dude. As mentioned at the beginning, Camp McINTOSH is coming up this weekend, September 23rd to 25th. We have an incredible promotion that has been offered up by Christine Lohr, who unfortunately is going to be tending to her grandmother, who's just recently had a stroke. There are 4 spots available at Camp McINTOSH. Christine is offering to pay for 2. So 2 lucky CFNers are going to get a chance to go. If you want to, you could all take a party of 4, and have a 2-for-1 deal. Doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, first come, first serve. Tracy Dupuis is waiting for your call at Camp McINTOSH. So I will put up the ad one more time so everybody knows who to contact. But please contact Tracy at www.campmacintosh.ca and get a hold of Tracy on. You can get a hold of Tracy on Messenger. Even reach out to me. I'll give you her number. I'll do whatever it takes to get folks up fishing at Camp McINTOSH this weekend. And it starts, as you can see, Friday, September 23rd to the 25th, when we finally get punted and we go about our everyday life. So as I said, please, please, please reach out, and hopefully you are there. Thanks to all of you who join us each and every Monday. We can't do this without you, with your involvement, your feedback, and just your continued support. It means the absolute world for us. FYI, for your interest, findings of the 2000 Recreational Survey Seminar. We'll save this for another time. Thanks, Jay, for that. I can't think of anybody else better to take us away. As always, Dave Mercer is in the house. Take us away, Dave. Hope everyone has a great week. Can't wait for Camp McINTOSH. We will be there, and we have some great films that we will be sharing along the way. Thanks, Steve. Thanks to all of you, the community, CFN, our sponsors, Powell Casting, for taking care of our mailing of our CFN Fish Shop prizes. It's a community effort, and we love you, and we thank you. Take care. All the best. Take it away, Dave.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.